Hi, Kevin from Let Me Tech You. And in this video, I'm going to be showing you an awesome way to structure your folders in Terraform to make it not only easily reproducible across different environments and regions, but to also make it to where your Terraform is a lot easier to read and manage when dealing with different projects and things of that nature when you're working across, dev, test, and prod environments or multi-region deployments. So if you are interested in this deployment, drop me a comment down below. I can share you the GitHub links and stuff like that. Any questions you may have in regards to how this also all will work. So we're going to run through this. I set up a lot of this before the video so we didn't have to run through a lot of the troubleshooting steps with setting this up. Now I am using Azure DevOps, but obviously this will work with any of your other CI/CD pipelines of choice. So I have a couple folders here. Now this says multi-region, that's just my repo name. And landing zones, I just kind of go with that because that's where just everything lands. I just like to call it landing zones. So this could be whatever you want to call it, your company name or whatever. So within that, I have another folder that's my region folder. So within that region, Central US or whatever region you're working in, kind of name that or structure it how you want. And then under that, I then have my environment folder. So dev, test, production, staging, all those different, environments that you may work in. And then under that, the only thing we will have is TFRs files. And then this is how this will all kind of come into play and work. And a lot of people may like this once I show how this all works and how easy it is to kind of maintain deployments and resources. So you can also have other folders underneath the different environment that you're working in. So you could have like a folder that's related to a particular, it could be, I don't know, department or whatever, or a specific project. So, your project could be, securities, firewalls or the networking team or whatever. So the only thing that does is just makes it so when you do go to start, decommissioning a lot of things that you can kind of know which things apply to whatever projects that it related to, since we're only going to be using TFRs with a map of key value pairs. Then we have another folder which is called modules. And inside of that, we just have everything separated by its particular provider of choice. So I have Azure. Now, this doesn't have to be done this way, it just makes it a lot cleaner. So I have everything within its own resource inside of the provider. So you could have like AWS, Palo Alto, so on and so forth, or just have everything underneath the modules folder. So the naming structure of this is based off the resource name. So as you can see, I have like, resource group, for example. If we go here, resource group. So instead of being Azure RM resource group, it's just resource underscore group. Route table. So instead of Azure RM route table. So that's just the way to kind of keep that familiar with people who may be looking to see how the modules are built. And then we have another folder with my scripts in it. So these scripts are something that you may be interested in, and I'll show you the reasoning behind this, which makes it easier to reproduce the code and deploy it across different environments and regions. So and only have to define your TFRs file because you're building everything as a module, and it only has to be built one time. So basically how this works, let's just kind of, go through the whole process here. So all my files said I have a main.tf, I have a provider.tf, and then a variables.tf. So in my main.tf, I'm basically just calling all of those modules. So the module, the source location, and then I'm bringing everything over as a map. Just, nothing is being defined within the module. It's resource group data. So if we go into my landing zone here, under this rg.tfr, there's a resource group data, and in that I have a map of objects. So basically, development Central US, my key value pairs, and then development Central US RG-02. I meant to put should do underscores there. I like underscores better because it actually, you can kind of click and highlight versus with the dashed, it kind of cuts it off there. So I'll go in and fix that. So with that, each of the modules have a, go to the resource group one here. So there's an outputs file that basically just generates an output of the names so that they can be utilized across different resource groups. I mean, not resource group, but TFRs files when you're referencing them, so you don't have to use the resource ID that it provide that it needs when you're trying to say, hey, what's the resource group that it's going to be applied to, or VNets, subnets, stuff like that. This is where the actual module gets built. So if you look at all the different modules, I'm basically taking the required and optional parameters that Terraform provides in their registry and applying that to a module. And so then we make what's optional optional, and then we make what's required required. So if we look inside of our variable here, we're basically defining that within the variables here. So if it's not being used, it's default nothing. So that way, if you aren't using that particular variable, it's not going to wait and try to make you input anything. And so we have the required things, which on everything we put in enable equals Boolean. So it's either true or false. And what this does is, if we look at my resource group, we're basically saying run this if value.enable equals true. And what I mean here is in the rg.tfrs, there's an enable option that we put on every single resource, not just resource groups, but VNets, subnets, whatever. And so then instead of having to comment sections of it out in your code, you can essentially just come in and set this to false, and then it'll either destroy it or not create it if it's not created already. So that's a good thing to have there. So as you can see on all of our particular resource groups, resources, we have that enabled option there. And then as you can see on the optional things that isn't needed, we only put optionals. Now you don't have to build all the variables out with all the particular options that are needed if you're not going to use them. If you're only going to use, like, say, enable name resource group location, and you want to leave all this other stuff out to make it easier, you can always come back in and edit a lot of this as well. So let's go in and show actually how this all kind of works with the script that creates a JSON file of the resources from the TFRs, and then it creates a tf.plan and runs that against the release, and that's how it builds the resources. And that's where I will get into the pipeline setup and the release setup here. So if we go into my code, so I got a couple different folders here. I don't have anything in there, so that's why those didn't show up in Azure DevOps. But under my region Central US and my rg.tfrs, I have these two here. But I'm going to go in and let's fix these keys real quick. So that's 02. And then let's go ahead and make another one. So the biggest thing with this is your keys are very important as far as the naming goes. I always recommend that your keys have some type of uniqueness to them, because that's what's going to matter the most. And the reason I say this is because you could have multiple people doing TFRs files, and it could basically someone could be using the same key, and it's gonna the JSON, the PowerShell script will detect if there's duplicates. So if we look in here, there's a portion where it says, yeah, duplicate resource found. It's gonna say the map.key.resource key encounter duplicates, and then it's gonna fail out. So if you wanna, basically that's where this comes in. So that's why it actually looks in every single folder. So you can have you can essentially have another folder. And like if I create a folder called Home Lab, and inside of there, you could essentially copy and paste this in there. And I could have this exact same setup, and it would fail because the two keys would be the same in both of these. So I would kind of go for something to where you're actually creating keys that match either your folder structure or some way that they're always unique. So I would go Home Lab, Central US RG01. We're actually not in that one. So inside of this one, let's go home lab. Central US RG01, home lab dash Azure. Save that. So resource group data. So now this is the home lab, and now let's create another folder called, well, let's just keep this outside of it. So we got 2 resource groups there, and then a resource group there inside this other folder. So now let's go ahead and commit that up. So git commit a new folder in RGs. All right, so now if I go back here, if I go to my pipeline, how I have this set up, let's pull this up here. Well, actually, let's go ahead and edit, and then we'll go back through and look and see. So I'm basically running latest. So I'm using Azure DevOps. I'm using the hosted pipeline, or the hosted OSs that the hosted deployment service through Azure. So I'm not using my own. If you're using your own, you're probably going to maybe either have a particular set of Terraform already installed, or going to stay on a particular set. I just do latest in my lab environment so that I always stay on the latest version. Not looking to break anything, or looking to try to not break anything, I guess you could say, since I just kind of stay up to date. And then so I do an initialization. This is just going to my particular subscription and my storage account for my TF state, and then the name of my TF state for this particular environment. So if we had another environment, we would do another stage. So add an agent job or another job, and then we would add our same thing for our particular environment that we're going into. So let me get rid of this here. And then, so this is where the merge comes in. So basically what's happening is inside of the PowerShell script, there's a particular section here up at the top. So our parameters, we need a folder, the environment, and then recursive. So how this works is, so the folder path, and then I'm looking in my development folder. So that's based off of here under repos, landing zones. That's my folder path, and then my development folder. So then it's recursing through all of that there. Go back into, and then the environment is going to be development. So that environment is what builds the JSON file. So if we look at down at the bottom here, this environment.tfrs.json. So it's just the naming, to help with the naming of it. And I'm doing that inside my variables here. So environment development, my script path, and my folder path. And I think that's it there. And then the plan is basically creating the var file is going to be my development.tfrs.json. And it's going to output as a tf.plan, and it's going to save that and publish that as an artifact. So if we go to releases, we should still see this going. So since I'm using the hosted version, it's probably a little long. Oh, actually, let's go to pipelines, see if that finished. So if we look at our pipeline here, we can see, so it's going to install all of the particular required providers or packages that aren't needed. Since this is using the hosted version, it's not going to already be installed. So it's going to do this every time of mine. And as you can see, it's saying, hey, there's 2 .tfrs found matching the patterning, anything, *.tfrs. So it's found, map keys found, resource group data. So that's the map keys. In the found resource key, RG data.development, Central US, RG01, RG02, and RG01. Oh, I only changed the underscore for the 1, but that's fine. So found resource keys, and now it's creating a plan. And as you can see, this is saying destroy because I changed the underscore there. So now I have 3 to add, 1 to destroy, and it's saying this is going to get created. This is going to get created, and the one that's getting destroyed will be created. And then it publishes that as an artifact. So if we go to our releases here, oh, it looks like we got an error. What's this saying? So our Kevin test already exists. So I probably already, we go back to my code. Probably just didn't change the name of one of those. So Kevin test. Well, that's fine. Let's go ahead and actually set Kevin test 1, Kevin test 2, and Home Lab Azure. Okay. Home Lab. Let's make these underscores, and let's save that. Okay, let's go ahead and push that back up. Change name of RG. So let me go into Azure and actually remove one of those as well. So there's nothing in there probably. Oh, it's already gone. Oh, so it actually built the two. But I'm going to delete them anyway. So let's delete this one. So I'm deleting them from here just so they can run fresh. And then the Home Lab 1 as well. And in another video, I'm going to just show how this can easily be reproduced across different regions, as far as making it simple and easier across different environments as well. So that's gone. Okay. So now with that, we got our separate folders that only are needing TFR's file. So let's try and look at, let's try to create one more thing here so I can kind of show you like just another thing. So a virtual network. So the only thing that's needed is the name, resource group, address, space, location. Okay. So let's do this. Inside my home lab, I'm going to create a new file and I'm going to call it network.tfrs. Now it has to be, so you see how it says resource group data? It's looking for, go in here. Oh, main.tf. If we look at virtual network, it's virtual network data. So that's why you want to keep the names kind of similar and not just off the cuff, because then it makes it easier to understand what it needs to be called when it's going across to the module. So it's going to be virtual network data, and then I'm going to do home lab underscore virtual network 01. And the only thing we need is, so for the art, so enabled equals true. And then the name is going to equals home lab vnet. Home lab vnet. And then what else was needed there? Let's just look. Variables. Address, space, location, resource group name. And in your variables, like I said, you want to kind of have the types listed, because that just makes it easier when doing troubleshooting. Some people may not even put types, and they'll just do a, virtual network data equals, and then they'll just have the curly braces and allow anything to come across. So you're kind of just depending on the person who's working with it, they'll just have to know what the type is or what's needed. So it just makes it a little tougher. So this is going to be a list of strings. So a list, I'm going to go 10.0.0.0/24. Location is going to be Central US. And I want, in the resource group name, I want to show, this is what I want to show you. I'm actually going to use Home Lab Azure And the reason why this is going to work is because it actually knows the outputs that's created based off to the state file that it's creating it in. And I'm hoping that that works, because that should, based off of how my outputs are. So output is Home Lab Azure, or the name is Home Lab Azure. So let's okay. So now I got my Home Lab VNet address space location resource group now. Now that's it. So now if I want, I could actually take this same file and let's place it in our development. This could be like our hub or something. You know what? Actually, let's create a new folder. And this could be, you know, hub. And we're going to place everything in there. And the great thing about this is, even though you're moving those in there, it doesn't affect the deployment because it's recursing through and it's creating, even though these file names are the same, it doesn't matter because it's putting this inside of a JSON file, and the only thing that needs to be unique is your keys. So that's why this is Home Lab Virtual Network 01. We're going to actually change this to be development. Development Virtual Network. Development VNet. We're going to go 1.0 there. Or actually, we got to go with a real. So let's do Kevin test 1. That's going to be that. Okay, so network there is going to be development VNet, development virtual network 01. We got our different keys for the resource groups. And then Home Lab Azure, enabled equals true. Home Lab Azure for the resource group name, Central US. Okay. Now, we're going to go and make sure that that actually ran no problem. So, let's see what happened here. Powershell exit. Invalid expected the start of an expression but found an invalid expression token. Let me just make sure I didn't have like a accidental character somewhere in there. Nope, looks good. Oh, yeah, actually, I do need to have a comma there. Okay, so now let's go ahead and save this and hit commit -m, add new VNet. Let's push that up. So I'm going to let that run here for a second. And once that gets done, we'll come back and check it out. Okay, so that finished there. So if we go back underneath the development pipeline there and we look at the plan, we can see that there's a couple things being built here. So we got a resource group, some virtual networks. And as you can see now that even with those being the same name, the name of the actual TFR file doesn't matter. It's the keys there that matter. So you want to make sure those are unique. And we were actually able to reference the resource group names across different TFRs file. So those outputs are what makes that a lot easy to be done as well. So and the reason for that is because, see, in the TF plan, it's not going to know that the resource group is built yet. So when it goes to actually try to deploy it, it will know to wait on the output of that particular resource before it tries to deploy the virtual network. So now we go over to the releases. So I actually had these already set up to just deploy after release. After the pipeline. So it looks like it already started. Let's kind of zoom in there a little bit on that. So as we can see, everything's gotten created or has gotten recreated. So let's go into our Terraform, our resource group, and refresh these. So we got our home lab, got our VNet, and we got the correct address space there, and the info for the Kevin Test 1 development VNet. So that's it there. So as you can see, that's what makes this deployment a lot easier, because now you're not having to actually build the modules every single time, and you can still have project level separation by the folders that you create. So if you have a particular project or something, now if I wanted to get rid of this entire project, I can just delete this folder and not worry about it. Now, you may not want to delete it, obviously, take the precautions of understanding what's in those folders in case someone dropped the wrong stuff in there. But like, let's say this project's being decommissioned, we can essentially come in and set these to false. So instead of deleting it, we just want to archive it, hold it off. We set those to false, and now we only have to delete what's inside of there. Now, if you had everything inside of, the same folder, and obviously the names would have to be different because it probably wouldn't let you do RG twice in the same folder. So you'd have to have, home lab RG or however you, name it that way. But then if you did have everything inside the same TFVARs file, like let's say we had this one TFVAR file under development, but then you had the home lab resource group being built, but then you also had this one. And so like we kept stacking them, you then have to try to figure out where things are and what environments they kind of go in or projects they kind of go into. So it just makes things a little harder to kind of separate when you got it all within the same TFVARs file. So that's it there. I'll show you a nice, easy way to deploy this or kind of make this a template to be able to deploy across different regions, and how easily that can be done once you get this set up the way it is. So I really recommend this setup because it makes it easier for teams to kind of not try to focus too much on the module at play as far as like building out what's needed. So like, if I need a key vault, I don't want to have to go through every project and create a key vault. So you want to kind of make this dry, or, sometimes we put standards as far as best practices in here. So you might say, network ACLs, default action deny. So anytime someone builds a key vault, they don't need to, say, hey, deny, because it's already going to be defaulted no matter who builds a resource group, a key vault. Same thing for virtual networks. You might come in and set like your DDoS protection plan for your environment always in there because you're using the same one across all your particular VNets. But you're making this dry because you're going to want to build this and use these same modules across different environments and regions. You may not want to try and make it too much agnostic, or not. You want to make it as agnostic as possible. So if you have any questions in regards to deployment, drop me a comment down below, and I'll be sure to answer any questions I can and provide the information needed to kind of get this set up properly. Again, thanks for tuning in. Like and subscribe, and hope to see you next time.